Good evenings and salutations, Calgary Battletech League fans and adjacents. We bring you another episode of Rules Corner, Episode 2, with Lee and Jeff.
Hi everybody and welcome back to the Rules Corner. This week we're going to be breaking down weapons attack skills. These are skills that improve your weapon's ability to cause damage, but not directly to damage and not directly to hit. These can be things like Ricochet, which helps you do internal damage and critical hits, or things like upgrading your accuracy, which doesn't give you a bonus to hit, but allows you to aim like you have a targeting computer.
Weapon attack skills. While making attacks with their weapons, some mech warriors have found little aspects or oddities that give them an edge. They can have these traits as a natural habit, or something that they have trained or learned with much practice over time. Accuracy, 3 points. This pilot is lethal when attempting to target specific locations on a shutdown or otherwise immobile mech. After a successful attack against a targeted location, the attack hits the intended location on a die roll of a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 instead of the normal 6, 7, or 8. This skill cannot be used if the mech has suffered a critical hit to its sensors, or with the Alpha Strike, Ricochet, Determination, or Marksman skills.
This skill is great for putting down enemy mechs. Once they're down, you can start aiming at specific locations just like if you had a targeting computer, and while the regular rules state that you can do this regardless, whether you have a targeting computer or not, this skill actually expands the die roll to almost a surety. That's like 5 or 6 dice out of a possible 12 options. So yeah, it makes it much more likely you're going to aim and hit the location you're wanting to.
Missile grouping, 3 points. This ability gives the pilot a +1 modifier on the cluster hit table when determining the number of missiles that hit a target from an SRM, MRM, or LRM attack. A valid line of sight must exist to the targeted unit, meaning that indirect fire receives no benefit from this skill. This skill can be combined with missile systems such as Artemis, Narc beacons, and etc. This skill cannot be used with ballistic weapons to increase their hits, and cannot be used with Ricochet.
This is a skill I use quite often in my combinations because I use very missile-heavy lances. It's pretty basic and simple. It adds an extra +1 to the cluster table. And when you add it with things like Artemis and Narc and things like that, it ends up being where you go from being able to hit with an average of an LRM-20 of about 12 missiles to averaging 16 to 20. It's almost like all of them. Almost like Streak, but not quite as powerful. But in the end, that extra +1 can make a huge difference on the amount of damage you're throwing downfield.
Quick reflexes, 3 points. This pilot is tuned into the battle to such an extent that they can make a torso twist at any time during the weapon attack phase. The pilot is still restricted to 1 torso twist per turn, but can execute a torso twist between shots during the same combat round if they wish. This skill can be very useful to any mech mounting a physical attack weapon. But remember that the torso twist will constitute the new facing for determining physical attack possibilities. Also remember to add the secondary target modifiers as applicable per standard rules. Another benefit is that turning of the torso can negate modifiers for targets out of the forward facing, allowing for a greater field of fire for weapons with different ranges.
Now this skill is a little bit complex and complicated, and the reason being is because most people forget about the different firing arcs. You have your front firing facing, which is directly in front of you and out in a V. Then you, of course, you have your right and your left firing arc, and you have your rear firing arc. When attacking, out your front firing arc, everything's fine, unless you target 2 targets, and then you get a +1 penalty for any secondary targets. If you try to target a mech in your front arc and a mech in your left, right, or rear arc, those targets outside of your front arc get a +2 penalty to be hit if they're your secondary targets. This skill allows you to fire forward, torso twist, and continue firing any forward mounted weapons into that. So it opens up your front arc quite significantly and helps get rid of that penalty. At least the extra penalty, bringing it from a +2 down to a +1. And if you happen to have an opponent that's in that arc right up against you that you can do a physical attack, then now, instead of only being able to do one arm punch into your right arc or one punch into your left arc, you can get 2 punches off into those arcs as long as you haven't fired any weapons in those arms.
Failsafe, 3 points. This mech warrior has learned to better control the charged capacitors built into the ERPPC or PPCs. The warrior may attempt to overcharge their weapon, 1 roll for each ERPPC or PPC, by rolling a PSR, and if successful, may add 2 extra points of damage to their next attack roll with that weapon, with an extra 2 points of heat attributed to those charged weapons as well. For example, 17 for an ERPPC or 12 for a PPC. A miss is a wasted roll and the charging roll must be done again. Holding the charge does not require any further rerolls, but the extra heat must be counted in each round until released. A roll of a 2 when charging the ERPPC or PPC burns out the overcharge capability of the weapon and causes a 1-point pilot hit from the feedback. This does not destroy the weapon, but does stop the warrior from overcharging the weapon for the rest of the battle.
This skill is one that really puts a little bit extra punch in your mechs and turns them into true head cappers. The PPC, doing 10 points of damage, goes internal, but isn't quite enough to quite take the head right off. With this skill, you go up to 12 and you just blow the head clean off. Now, please don't get confused with the capacitor tech that is available to purchase for some mechs. Don't think we're using it in League this year, but you can purchase it. It allows you to do a 5-point overheat and overcharge your weapons. We're not using that in League this year. This gives you the ability to do it with the built-in capacitors the mech's PPCs already have.
Sniper, 3 points. This pilot can use the extreme range of 1 direct fire weapon to engage the enemy. The pilot must not have moved their mech during that turn, and all other attacks at a +1 to the weapon attack phase. The range to hit number for the extreme range is +5. This skill cannot be combined with Camouflage, Marksman, or Deja Vu.
Just like the name suggests, Sniper allows you to reach out and touch somebody at extreme ranges. The extreme range bracket is usually 1 group further. So I believe for an LRM it'd be 7, 14, 21, 28. And you can figure it out for other weapons. Medium lasers would be 3, 6, 9, 12. You get to pick any weapon on your mech to use this skill with at the time you decide to use it. But all the rest of your weapons have penalties to fire. You're not allowed to move because you're taking your time to load up and aim at the mech. And all in all, I think it will be really good for those mechs that are kind of built to be snipers with 1 ER large laser, an autocannon 5, a gauze rifle, stuff like that, that are kind of sitting back at the end of the battlefield anyway, trying to reach out and hit somebody.
Alpha Strike, 4 points. This ability allows the pilot to make a single attack roll for an all-or-nothing attack. This attack will include every weapon in the mech's arsenal that are in range and in weapon's arc. Calculate the number by determining the 2-hit number for every weapon in the mech inventory that will be firing this turn. Take the worst odds to hit from this group, which will then determine the final target number that must be rolled for the attack to succeed. Make a single attack roll against the target with this worst target number. If the attack hits, all weapons within the cluster have hit. If the attack misses, all the weapons for the cluster have missed. All missile and cluster hits must be determined per standard rules. Roll for damage locations as normal for each individual weapon from the cluster. This skill cannot be used with determination, ricochet, or accuracy.
This is a very powerful skill, especially if you have large weapons that can do huge amounts of damage, or a whole bunch of little weapons that you want to use at close range. When your odds are good, even when they're great, you're bound to miss with a couple. The Hunchback 4P comes to mind. When you're rolling that many dice, you're going to get your snake eyes, you're going to get your 12s, you're going to hit all over the map, but you're probably not going to hit with everything. With this skill, you make 1 roll and they either all hit or they all miss. You got to use the worst odds, but careful management of range and firing brackets, and you'd be able to use this to make some pretty devastating shots.
Deja Vu, 4 points. Select a single direct fire weapon that the mech may fire that turn at a +2 to hit modifier if the mech moved during the movement phase. If the mech remains stationary during the movement phase, the modifier is a +1. The pilot can make up to 2 attempts to hit the same target rather than 1 with the selected weapon. If the chosen roll results in a jammed rotary assault cannon or ultra autocannon, the detrimental result takes effect on the weapon. No extra ammunition or heat is expended during this attempt, and the pilot may not hit more than once with the selected weapon. The mech may also fire its remaining weapons at a +1 to hit modifier during a turn where it is selected a main weapon for Deja Vu. This skill cannot be mixed with camouflage, sniper, or marksman.
This allows you to do a double tap on an enemy mech. Now, it's kind of like messing with time, because really the second shot isn't really happening. It's more of just 2 chances to determine whether you hit. Works best when you're not moving a lot, but you can do it when you're walking, running, or jumping. It's just a little bit harder to hit. And you can fire other weapons at the same time with a mild penalty. But if you have that big bore autocannon 20 or a rack 5 that you're really wanting to hit and make those shots count, possibly even with low target numbers, the penalty's not that big of a deal, especially if you can do that 20-point blast or hit with those 5 or 6 autocannon 5 rounds from the rotary autocannon.
Exploit, 3 points. Large bore autocannons and lasers damage a mech by concentrated damage over a number of seconds. This may be from a beam of energy or a stream of autocannon shells. A pilot skilled in the exploit may take advantage of this characteristic by focusing the attack where it will cause the most damage to an enemy mech. Any large laser, pulse, X-pulse, or ER variant, or the AC-10 or 20 class autocannon fired in single slug mode for ultras or LBXs may be walked into an adjacent location after the original hit location is determined. Refer to the damage transfer diagram on the mech sheets to determine which sections are considered adjacent to each other. This is a hard thing to do, so apply a +1 to hit modifier to any weapon attempting to exploit. The player must announce that they will attempt to exploit before the hit roll is made. The pilot must employ exploit even if the end result is not very favorable. For example, if the original shot struck the mech's head, the remainder of the damage would automatically transfer down to the center torso. Divide the total damage in half and round fractions down. Apply the first half damage to the original hit location and the second half damage to be applied to the adjacent hit location, excluding the head.
So this really works well when you're trying to move fire into a damaged location. So, shooting at a guy's back and you've damaged it before and the left torso's open, well, you hit him in the left arm, you can move half of that damage over into that damaged location. You have to declare it ahead of time, so it kind of halves your really big impact damage to one location, but it does allow you to maybe take advantage of some of those weakened locations and start cutting off those parts of the mech that are causing you the most grief.
Marksman, 3 points. With a single direct fire weapon, a pilot can designate a desired location on an enemy mech as if the attack was being made with a targeting computer. This attack will be made with a +3 to hit modifier following the normal targeting computer confirmation rolls. Other weapons will suffer a +1 to hit modifier, but locations will be rolled to hit normally. This skill cannot be combined with camouflage, sniper, determination, or Deja Vu, or if the mech already has a targeting computer.
So this basically gives you a free targeting computer. A little bit harder to hit with, but you've gotten that good with your mech's targeting system to be able to target a specific location and really take advantage of that. Now, it is hard to hit, but when you have skills like Personal Vendetta or Target Lock, you may want to target a specific location to, as before, cut off those troublesome locations that are causing you grief, like that right arm fielding the Gauss rifle.
Steady Hand, 3 points. This ability pertains to autocannons, allowing more shots to hit when rolling on the cluster hits table. LBX clusters Ultra autocannons and rotary assault cannon shots have a +2 added to the determining hits roll. This skill may not be used with Ricochet, Marksman, or Accuracy.
This skill is majorly important for mechs like the Legionnaire with its rotary autocannon 5, the Emperor with its 2 LB-10Xs, or really any mech with a direct fire autocannon that has special bonuses to it. The Ultra autocannon, which is one of my most hated weapons because you need an 8 or higher to get that second shot to land, now you need a 6 or higher to hit. Way more likely to get that second round to hit, and making mechs like the Shadowhawk with the Ultra autocannon 5, it makes a lot more sense to use it. Or that mech with the Ultra autocannon 20, well, you're not wasting half your ammunition each turn throwing around a way that wasn't going to hit anyway.
Multitasking, 3 points. This skill allows a mech pilot to also make weapon attacks with an additional +3 to hit modifier while charging, attempting a grappling, or death from above attacks.
So, multitasking lets you do something that isn't normally allowed in the regular Battletech. It allows you to do a weapons fire attack, so you get to fire the weapons on your mech while doing things like that shoulder in charge, the death from above stomp on the enemy mech, or the grappling to try to keep them from moving. Now, does not have to be the target that you're planning on doing these physical attacks to either. So you can blast somebody beside you, the mech that you're trying to charge, or you can try to make sure that that charging mech takes that little bit extra damage and opens them up for some potential criticals because the charging attack is happening after you've already poked holes with your guns.
Ricochet, 4 points. This skill represents the knowledge of vital internal systems or weak points on all mechs the pilot has committed to memory, allowing for the potential of getting more critical hits when determining damage against enemy mechs. This skill can only be used with direct fire weapons like autocannons and lasers, or with physical attacks. This skill can in no way affect damage this mech creates to themselves, either through falling damage or heat-induced internal ammunition explosions. Add a +1 modifier to any roll made to determine critical hits against a location when an 8 or higher is the result. A 12 will be the maximum result, and if an 11 is converted to a 12 using this skill, apply 3 critical hits against the section instead of the limb blown off critical hits effect. Limbs cannot be blown off using this skill, but a natural 12 will still generate that result.
Ricochet really gives you the opportunity to increase the number of critical hits that you do to an enemy mech. I happen to have a really bad habit of getting criticals at all. I don't get a lot of them, so it would be good when I do get them to have a more chance of doing, instead of 1, to do 2, or instead of doing 2, to do 3. Now, you can't blow off limbs quite as easily with this skill. You still need that natural 12 to be able to do it. An 11 moved up to a 12 is not a destroyed limb, but with 3 critical hits, you've messed up that limb pretty bad anyway.
Determination, 5 points. This skill allows the mech to make a special out-of-order weapons attack. To perform this attack, the pilot must give up half their mech's movement walking points, rounded down, and may only walk or stand still for that turn. The attack takes place after all units on the board have completed their movement, but before the normal weapon attack phase. By doing this, the pilot can make all weapon attacks at the end of movement, with all damage taking place before the weapon attack phase. The target must make a piloting check if required. Keep track of this roll as it stands for the coming weapon attack phase as well.
So the way this works is basically you're doing a little bit of a preemptive shot. So you've decided to move a little bit slower, you move or not move at all. You wait until everybody is moved, and before any other weapons fire is done, you make your shot. If you kill the opponent, he doesn't get to fire, so that we're taking it out of the simultaneous fire rule, as well as if he has to make a piloting check because of the amount of damage you did, he may be falling down and not even be able to see the enemy, or be out of sight because of a direction facing change. With that skill, it could make a huge difference if you can take that mech out that's coming in to do a physical attack phase as well. Big Berserker or Axeman may not even get a chance to take their swing or even fire their big bore autocannons because they've already been knocked down. It's a really useful skill, and that's why it's so expensive. Alright, So that is going to be the end of this week's show. We're going to be moving on to the general skills and the faction-specific skills in another video, possibly 2 videos, depending upon length of time, how they run. But this gives you a really good idea of how we've improved the weapons themselves without increasing your chances to hit, or increasing the damage that the weapons themselves are doing, other than Failsafe, making those PPCs a little bit harder hitting, but gives you that little bit of a risk of them burning out as well. We'll see you guys on the next show. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and spread the word. We want more people to hear about our channel and about our shows, simply because the more information we get out, the larger the community gets, and the more people that want to play Battletech.
Get up.